Spoilerin time, folks. On Cordkillers, our other show, we talk about how to watch and what the services are and the gear you need. On this show, we actually get to watch the stuff and then talk about what we think. We're going to talk about Firefly, the episode called Safe. We're going to talk about Game of Thrones Season 7, Episode 5, Preacher Season 2, Episode 8, and Rick and Morty Episode 4 of Season 3. But first, I am rude. I'm Tom Merritt. My co-host here is Brian Brushwood.
You have a tendency to be rude every single time. Every single time around, it takes this long to get around to introducing
you. I'm so excited about spoilering things, Brian.
It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Shall we jump into the movie draft?
Let's.
Okay. Spoiler alert, Tom. You're still number one, and you're the winner, and you're going to be the winner by a lot. 788 million. Officially, the game goes 30 days after the last movie, but it's not looking like anything's going to shift. Night Attack secures its number 2 position over Team Big and Tall. There was a hot moment. It looked like they were going to make it. And Ballerina Bess stays at number 1, our single chat realm top winner. Congratulations.
No. This is where sorry.
It went back to a tie in chat
realm. Did go back to a tie. Oh, it did.
Because it used to be A. Hester, and now Ballerina Bess took over with Roy D77 by 2 million. That's still fighting.
Wow, that's right.
We still got a race on the chat room.
All right, well, maybe Girls Trip will have a surge. By the way, number 1 purchase of the entire movie draft: Girls Trip. Girls Trip for $7.
You know what would have been Baby Driver, which because it got moved around and some other stuff happened, was not in this draft, made $100 million.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, thank goodness if only we had an insider pro who was willing to be the commissioner next time.
She is
Speaking
ready to
of
pick
which, we're going to break with tradition. A while ago, we started doing teams in the summer movie draft and single individual players in the winter movie draft. I think this year we're going to move to teams. And my only justification for not wanting teams was that, but winter is the one time I get to play against Justin. And then somebody pointed out, you and Justin don't have to be on the same team.
Yeah,
and then
I pointed that out.
So I think somebody with a beard may have pointed it out.
Jason Murphy?
Yeah. So one of my salt and pepper bearded co-hosts may have pointed out. So you're down though, right? You want to be a team? We could take on the forces of darkness.
Wait, you and I are going to be a team.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah, let's do this.
Right?
Let's tear this mother up.
That's right. Okay, now the thing is you and I have very different styles, but...
No, this will be fun, though. This will be fun. And, my style has won both the winter and is about to win the summer. It's time to shake things up,
this
right?
Guy.
You've done the same.
Same. Yes, no, we'll call our team Champions.
Team Lannisters. Oh, my God.
Team Lannisters, we repaired it.
We will pay your debts. And we can make Milango and Christy Cates honorary members of this
you know what? They could be our backup members. They could be our towel boys.
There are seconds.
So like we get
one
started.
One
of them holds water, the other holds a towel for us. We're like, all right, we got this. Team Cordkillers.
Yes. Excellent. No, I'm all for that. And yeah, I talked to my wife who works for Rotten Tomatoes, and she and one of her coworkers are putting together a slate for us. And so we should have more details about schedules and what's going to be in it shortly.
Oh, hells yes.
Now, we don't always have a lot of general feedback. Usually the feedback we get for Spoiler in Time is about specific stuff, but we got
specifically how wrong Brian is on everything at all times. That's
specifically about individual shows. This time we got an email about how broadly wrong Brian is. No, it's not like that at all. Actually, Tim wrote in giving us some great feedback about saying, hey, can you guys watch less sci-fi? He doesn't want us to not watch sci-fi. He just wants more diversity in the kind of things we watch. We always welcome that kind of feedback.
Specifically, he gives a fantastic shout out to the work that Bryce has been doing with On the Lookout. He really commended Bryce's diverse picks.
And that got cut from this email.
Ever so gently chided us for not being diverse enough.
Well, you know what? We're going to be us, and that's why we need Bryce around to help shake that thing up. On a different topic, he says, I'm still a patron and don't intend to change that. Thank you. But I am wishing there was a way I could help you get to your goal for the Spoiler in Time library project. I guess I could create a fake account and pledge another $1 or so a few times, but something tells me that would violate the terms of service of Patreon. I desperately want this project to happen. What can I do? My friend groups barely include any podcast subscribers, let alone people who support them financially.
I'll tell you what, if there was ever a better time to get this email, I don't know it, because in the break between the main show and this program right here, we talked to Andy Beach, who is working on a project where machine learning has the ability to help us carve out all of these segments. So, of course, our goal originally was to justify the investment of human effort to make this happen by getting to a certain number of patrons, but which, by the way, we're still very close to. If you're on the fence and you've been thinking about signing up, please do. You'll feel good about yourself every single day you look in the mirror. But failing that, we might have machines do all of that carving out for us. So we'll see how that goes.
And we have this is actually not the first contact we've had about someone automating the Spoilerin time stuff, because we have time codes for Spoilerin time. So it very likely was not all going to be done by machines, but the thing that Andy Beach suggested, it sounds amazing.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you want to help, you can give us a 5-star rate and review on iTunes, or just tell a friend, share a YouTube link, share
Patreon.
Well, get them into the show, and because we pitch Patreon every week, you know what I mean? Tell a friend.
All right,
that's free. Friends
tell
are
a friend about Patreon.
Get them involved, and reviews. Yeah, the reviews help us as well.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into Rick and Morty, episode 4 of season 3, where they make fun of superhero movies. And we actually got an email from Big Jim, another Patreon, longtime big supporter of our show, who has a confession to make, Brian.
Yeah, he says he's been watching the show and he knows that we really, really love Rick and Morty. And for the first 2 seasons, I fell in love too. But lately, this 3rd season, I just can't get on the hype train. It's starting to feel like The Simpsons season 8. I get it. Rick is the same wild, crazy, drunkard genius. Morty's attempting to be normal, except this season he's not. As just seen in episode 4, he knows all of Rick's bullcrap too well. Summer's no longer a wild-eyed girl trying to figure out her life. She's having displacement issues. Beth is turning more and more into her father, as seen by episode 3, by not caring about her children and only feels emotional about her relationship with her father. And yet the character I most identify with is left out in the cold, Jerry, the everyman. The guy who's trying to be normal, the guy who's trying to hold his family together and grounded in some sense of reality. He's been pushed out and aside into some poor area of town to be lost and forgotten so that we can be crazy and wacky. And he goes on with a lot more really good points. I got to tell you, Tom, Big Jim, I think he's right. I think this it's like it's flaming hot Cheetos. Everyone's like, the best part is the flaming hot. So you just take a shot of flaming hot Cheeto dust. And it's like, well, that's not the same as eating Cheetos.
Yeah. What strikes me about Big Jim's email is his criticisms of the characters should be a description of character growth, right? Summer's no longer a wild-eyed girl who's trying to figure out her life. She's having displacement issues. Beth is turning into her father. Like, these on paper sound like they should be like, oh yeah, we're not just getting the same old characters all the time. They're growing. But I think his criticism is, instead of seeing the characters grow, we're seeing them narrow in his eyes. And I'm with you a little bit. This is the first episode where I still like the bits. I still like a bunch of the, the off-the-cuff humor. But the send-up of superhero movies, I didn't dislike it. I get it. But it just felt like more of the same to me. Like, okay, taking a cultural icon and deconstructing it, but also, showing Morty as the person who's like, yes, but there is value in this sort of things, and having that conversation. It was fun, but I didn't even realize that I wasn't laughing as much until I thought back on it after reading Jim's email.
If I'm being generous, I'm going to suggest / hope that the writers themselves understand this, and that is why we got what we got out of this episode, because in many ways this might be the worst episode of Rick and Morty we've ever had. By which I mean, and again, grade everything on a curve. All the writing was hilarious, exactly. and all that stuff.
There's a worst episode of Rick and Morty because there are episodes of Rick and Morty. It doesn't mean it's a horrible episode.
Correct. Specifically, what was a little bit, I'll say disappointing to me, was that Rick is both the good guy and the bad guy, but good Rick is a useless vestige, just sent to gawk and marvel at himself. Morty is clearly bored by drunk Rick's gimmick and just goes through the motion to take us through this. And we're introduced to a bunch of characters just to have them all tear each other apart, which I understand that's a fine way to... you know what? I put this one in the same category as Anatomy Park, something where... They picked up a movie, they play with the movie, and then it's done. And if I never saw this episode again, I'd be fine with it. Same with Anatomy Park. I'd be fine with that. Never seen that one again.
That's great. This episode, more than any episode this season, made me out loud laugh.
Wow!
Nonstop. Because I feel the same way about the Mad Max episode 2 from this season. I really did not dig the setup of it or the very on-the-nose telling of that story. But, this is all personal preference.
Sure.
But this one was like a home run for me.
That's funny because I love Mad Max Fury Road. So sending that up was fun for me because
Correct.
I'm like, well, I know it's a good movie. This is just, picking at the parts that you can pick out and it's fun. Whereas maybe with this one, I'm like, you know what? I've had enough negativity because some of these movies aren't that great. Like, you don't need to kick them while they're down. Like, this isn't helping for me. I don't know.
Well, and keep in mind, this would have been written at the height of pre-Guardians of the Galaxy fever, right? Or sequel, before the sequel, right? Sure. So when it's right, I mean, it's very much as a send-up of that specific franchise. Yeah, I don't know. Now, having said all of that, it's good. It's always good. It's like sex.
Yeah.
Even when it's bad, it's great.
Stuff in it.
Yep.
Yeah. And good news, Big Jim. Next week you get a Jerry episode.
It's a big Rick and Jerry thing. I didn't watch the teaser, but that's like the name of the teaser clip, so it's very on the nose.
So
that's what they're doing.
Here's the interesting thing: is in Doctor Who, you have a natural solution to all of this. Swap out the companion, bring back an old companion, introduce a new one. Swap out a doctor. All of a sudden, now he's a she, and so on. I don't know that they could get away with that on Rick and Morty. I don't know that I would ask for it. Part of me thinks that if I was forced to have that happen, to have some kind of like Time Lord regeneration, to go a whole season with Grandma Rick instead of regular Rick, that would be really challenging. Maybe a lot of fun. Maybe perfect to re-energize and put growth in or something.
Yeah. I mean, it's difficult. These are paper cutout characters for the most part that they are trying to inflate to get a third season and maybe a fourth season out of them. They didn't intend this to be this complex of a show, I think.
Yeah, but I think that's why as rote as it verges on feeling now, I think it's good that they're doing things like taking Jerry out of the picture because they're A/B testing basically. Like we know how people feel when Jerry is the dunderheaded center of the family, but now let's find out what we feel like when he's just suddenly not there. Like do we all, after a diet of pure sugar, do we suddenly crave something savory and meaty and fatty?
Yeah. Or Szechuan flavored.
Or Szechuan, yeah.
More like. All right, let's get on to Preacher, episode 8 of the current season, which is the second season of Preacher. And we are still in New Orleans. We're kind of treading water. And it didn't feel like we made a lot of progress. We still have Cassidy's son pleading with him. We still have Tulip off screen going to the place where they shoot her in the chest. But what we added was the folks from the opposition are in the same building spying on them. And Tulip goes, because she wants to plaster up the holes so she doesn't think about the bullets anymore, accidentally making friends with one of them.
Yeah, or at least making contact and acting friendly. But then again, so they are acting friendly with her. And you left out my favorite part of this episode. Eugene becoming a boss. Cape Fear soundtrack starts playing. Open on him doing pull-ups with the name of his girl tattooed on his back. Just living life in Gen Pop. That was great.
I mean, he was trying. He was doing it. He was pulling it. And then he accidentally helped somebody.
Yeah, is this the one where they did the extrapolation, or that was last episode?
No, this is the one where they catch him being nice, And so they determine that he is the one who's not supposed to be there. So in punishment for him not being there and throwing off the whole system, they put him in the extrapolation device, which shows Jesse making out with his girl.
Yeah, that's spoiler alert. We're about to get into kind of adult material, so if you have young ones, skip over the next few seconds. AMC is not in the business of transmitting images of people having sex, which makes me wonder, like, they did a good job of showing Jesse kissing that girl and a rhythmic body posturing that implied a certain sexual act was happening without crossing the line. Like it took me halfway of watching it to get what they were implying was happening below the frame.
Yeah, it was all below the frame, if you will.
Yeah, how do you think those conversations go with AMC?
Oh, I imagine they've got a standards and practices person who is saying, all right, now we're not under FCC regulations, but we are under audience restrictions.
Right.
And this is what I think we can do that will keep people off our back and will stay within our voluntary guidelines that we have signed up for. And, you know, it's the can you explain it to a 5-year-old test usually.
Yeah. Well,
which is like, if they're like, what are they doing? I'm like, oh, they're just bouncing up and down on the bed.
They're kissing. Right. We were talking about this on Weird Things. Maybe it was last week. This film is not yet rated. It's all about the MPAA. And how, like, it's kind of, the MPAA is kind of responsible for all sex scenes being really bad. Like the way bodies thrash, it's like, hey man, I made 3 babies and it does not look anything like that. That's ridiculous and unsexy and that's not the way people have sex. But by making it unsexy, you're more likely to get it through the ratings board and stuff. And so anyway, that's a fascinating space, but neither here nor there. We also, this episode, got Jesse doing detective work, trying to go into Best Buy, basically. Circuit Land, I forget what they call it.
Yeah, and the not the Geek Squad.
The Dork Docs or something.
The Dork Docs.
Yeah.
And I actually really enjoyed, and I wasn't paying close enough attention to the storyline to think I was going to predict something, but I liked that they were trying to help him out. Like, oh yeah, we totally you're clear. There's no serial number on there. You're all good.
Yeah, that was a good twist. And then also like, wait, maybe there's a face there, and they're like, nope, coffee pot, wasted time. Oh well. And then ultimately, so his entire arc, that episode, is a waste. Which is doubly painful because the last thing we see is them destroying the disc that clearly says, what's the name of the industries that hair bald guy works for?
Right. Right. It has that name of that industry on the disc.
Yeah. I liked, okay. Loved all the Eugene stuff. Something tells me probably shouldn't trust that Hitler. I'm just, nutty idea.
Yeah, he seems like he's a different guy these days, but I don't know.
I don't know if I trust that Hitler just yet. Whereas Eugene is falling into his path. Utterly heartbreaking and wonderful. The Cassidy journey. This is the first episode that Cassidy is clearly the star of. Right.
I almost forgot about the flashback open where you see, young
singing,
leather-clad Cassidy singing a song about a whore to his newborn baby son.
Well, it's such a profane song because it's to the tune "Jesus Loves Me," and only it's about the local whore and so on, and he's singing it to a baby, and there's something so wrong about that, and yet it's so profoundly meant when he said it, and then he pulls out a flask and then takes a swig after saying what a great person he's going to be. Is this the same episode that he talks about the loneliness that comes from being a vampire and Tulip is unimpressed, or is that a previous episode?
Yeah, I feel like that's this one too, where he's kind of asking, should I do this? Like
asking, not asking. Yeah.
Yeah. If you were able to get this gift, would you want it? But he's not describing the actual situation when he asks it.
Utterly heartbreaking, especially because that entire episode long, you could tell he's really flirting. He's begging for literally anyone to give him permission to say this is a good thing for a dad to do for his child. And
because he doesn't want to watch his child suffer, even as an old man.
Yeah. That and ultimately it looks as though it's not completely conclusively shown, but it looks as though he makes the right decision at the end. But those tender moments of tending to an old dying loved one as he's vomiting and so on, my goodness, that's amazing. It's the best show on TV. It's congratulations, Preacher, you're my favorite thing.
It's and this episode is the classic. The classic connective tissue episode. This is the episode where not a lot happens. It's, we're getting from A to B.
Yep.
And it still was incredibly enjoyable.
Agreed.
So, yeah. Best rendition of Charlotte the Harlot that you'll ever listen to. On to Game of Thrones. Another connective tissue episode, I think. I enjoyed it, and in fact, I needed it after the breakneck pace of the battle episode last week.
Yes.
And all of the things that have been happening in the reunions, slowing down a little and letting, Jon have a mission and get a little cool meeting with Jorah Mormont and Jon Snow, which isn't a reunion, but it is a reunion for Jon's sword, which was supposed to be Jorah's.
That's right.
And I'm wondering if that's going to come up later in conversation along the road. But Jon being able to say, "Oh yeah, I served with your father."
I think that'll be in the book or some version of that in the book. But I just don't think they have time to inject that. I don't see how you would wedge that in at this point.
Well, it is a Valyrian steel sword, which is one of the only ways that you can kill a White Walker. Mm-hmm. So there would be a natural reason for Jon to bring it up.
That's right, because they're going as a group. Yeah. This bunch of misfits up to.
And Jon's gonna say like, "Oh well, I've got this Valyrian steel sword. Oh right, this is supposed to be yours."
Yeah. Oh yeah. Maybe he gives it to him
now instead of a bear. So
yeah, maybe he gets it and instead claims the original sword he was supposed to get.
Yeah.
Where did Ice go to? Ice got split up into two swords, went to two people. One of them was Jaime. Where's the other one?
Brienne
has the other half. Got it.
Yeah, because the other half was supposed to go to Joffrey, and then Jaime took it and gave it to Brienne after Joffrey was killed.
Yeah. Man, that scene. Yes, it's computer graphics. Yes, it's the culmination of 7 seasons of story weaving or whatever. But that scene when Jon Snow reaches forward and touches a dragon, and the dragon is cool with it. When you could tell, dragon's not cool with just anyone touching it. It's pretty great. Pretty great.
It's like, oh, I could smell the Targaryen on you.
Yes.
Yeah, you're fine.
Yes. Well, and especially to anyone who knows the strange relationship with the strange intimacy that mankind has with dogs. You feel that like you don't know how it's going to go. It's like at any moment this could pivot, but for right now this feels right.
I thought of it, but it's a little like when Django met you.
Yes,
my old dog.
Yes. Yeah, because Django has this deep growl and barks, like terror.
Me being Daenerys in this situation is like, oh well, I'm sure it's going to be fine. Whereas Jon Snow being you is like, is it going to eat my hand?
Is it fine? Is it fine? Yeah, well, especially not knowing how much he trusts Daenerys at this moment. Yeah, speaking of Daenerys, this is a weird episode. Like, I loved that scene where Varys, for the first time I think ever, we see Varys full-on succumb to vice. Like, Varys is so disturbed by the fact that Daenerys is the kind of person who is okay with burning people alive for failing to swear fealty, that he has a desperation when he grabs the wine goblet and starts sucking it down. That's something we've not seen Varys do ever.
Well, and watching Tyrion backpedal from being the person like, you should know, don't do this, to being trying to defend her to Varys was interesting too.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I got to admit, and this is a technical thing that I shouldn't really ding it on, but it was a little bit silly that this lake is obviously all of 4 feet deep, but last episode ends with what looks like Jaime descending into the depths, and then begins this episode with him clearly a mile away from the battle going, Like they just swam underneath all that way to get to this moment.
Yeah, the current in the lake didn't look quite as strong as it would need to be to pull them that far. But
Correct.
maybe Braun swam him over there. I don't know.
I mean, that's fine. But normally Game of Thrones is better to where I don't have to invest that kind of rationalization, you know?
We have not got to the big revelation of this episode,
which is
Sam and Gilly having an evening read, and Gilly going through a book that is clearly boring Sam because she's talking about the number of trees planted here and there, and then mentions,
Rhaegar.
It looks like he performed. What's an annulment? And Sam explains what an annulment is. She's like, yeah, because it says he performed one for Rhaegar, and so never mind. And it's like, oh crap, he annulled Rhaegar's marriage to Tyrell, and then performed a wedding, which obviously is Lyanna Stark, which then would make Jon Snow, the baby of Lyanna and Rhaegar, a legitimate Targaryen.
This is a weird thing that in the moment, that was such a non-scene that it sort of painted red that this is important because it was so boring that it had to be important, right?
Yeah.
And weirdly, I think we're going to see that scene over and over and over again on the previously ons. And only then, in that context, will it mean something to people because by and large, it just sort of blew past in the moment.
Well,
although
I'm wondering at what point will someone bring this up? Like maybe Bran makes it clear that Jon is a Targaryen, but there's an argument, but he's still a bastard, right? And then Gilly or Sam go, well, hold on, wait a minute. I just remembered something.
Yeah, probably. But also in the chat, Xylophanes is pointing out that it's Martell, not Tyrell, but yes.
Oh, sorry, Martell. Thank you for the correction.
But my favorite part about that scene actually had nothing to do with that revelation because internet fan theories had been sniffing around this being the fact for a while. I loved, capital Loved, Samwell as beleaguered dad who was just like, he goes from like someday maybe I'll touch a girl's breast to now he's like, yes, all right, fine, look, I'm trying, all right, I'm putting food on the table. Jeez, you guys.
And just gives the book to the baby.
Yes, like whatever. And the baby's like, yeah, let's go.
And getting frustrated with no one believing in the White Walkers to the point that he's leaving. He's headed back with that knowledge back north. We also have, we touched on Jon heading on a mission north, but we didn't touch on the mission to capture a White Walker and take it to King's Landing to convince Cersei.
It's okay. First of all, I don't know about the merits of the mission. I can speak to the structure of the mission. This is straight up Ocean's 11. I'm super stoked.
It's Magnificent Seven.
Super stoked.
There are 7 of them.
Yeah, the Magnificent Seven, right? Yeah. Like, all bandits and misfits. What a bunch. What a gallery of rogues. What could go wrong?
Boo.
Yeah. So, Cersei is a good. The whole, and then that again. Great scene with Tyrion sneaking into King's Landing, and you think that's going to be the big scene, and it is a big scene, but we get surprised with Davos going and discovering that, yes, Gendry did make it to King's Landing in that little boat that we saw him leave on so many seasons ago, and now Gendry wants to be part of that rogues gallery you're talking about.
Loved that moment with Gendry. I love the fact that he popped out of nowhere, and I love that the Onion Knight says, hey, shut up, and just, this is your new name, keep it quiet. He's like, yeah, sounds great. You're like, hi, I'm Gendry. My dad was Robert Baratheon. Got no dog in the fight? Let's kill some bad guys. Let's go. Yeah.
I'm good with a hammer.
Right? Yeah, that was a great moment. I deeply loved the fact that this episode didn't have a whole lot going on. I'm glad that we got a little bit of breathing room. Saw a little bit of... lot of hints that Cersei's up to something. You know, if she says, "Oh yeah, bend the knee," that sounds reasonable. Maybe that's something we should do. Got to be clever, like our old dad.
Oh, I knew Tyrion was in town. No worries. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna be really excited. It'll be interesting to see whether or not, because everything has to pivot. It has to be humans versus the undead, right? By the end, and the question is, do we make it to the end and the last thing we see is, oh, by the way, kill Cersei? or do we kill her early on and we're like, now we're all unified, let's take on the undead? I feel like keeping Cersei is a good way to keep pro wrestling fans happy. Like I really enjoy hating their guts. Oh, by the way, it occurred to me that Cersei is the kind of person who might lie to her own brother about being pregnant with their child.
Yeah. You know what? You're absolutely right, because when Jaime inevitably kills Cersei because he is the Kingslayer, and like that's drama you can't pass up with, oh, my wife, my sister, and evil queen. Well, okay. Having him think he's killing an unborn baby. Wow.
Well, that certainly alters the stakes in his mind, and makes us understand, his conflicted nature.
And is exactly the kind of thing Cersei would do, is to hedge her bets.
A little bit of insurance. Little bit of insurance.
And we haven't talked about, there was so much that actually did happen, even though not a lot of like big events. The battle of wits between Arya and Littlefinger, where you think Arya is sneaking up on Littlefinger, finding out what he's up to, but it turns out Littlefinger knew that Arya was sneaking up on him and left the note from Sansa asking to bend the knee to Joffrey for her to find. And then the next question is, but does Arya know what Littlefinger's game is? I'm intrigued. I can't wait to find out.
I don't know. That had less of an impact on me because there are certain things that are axiomatic, and one of them is that Littlefinger always knew this was coming. There's not been, he's the only character in the book who never, ever, ever gets surprised. Maybe him and Varys, right? And in that regard, Littlefinger, I guess he's an agent of chaos. Is he an agent of chaos or order? Is he on the same team?
No, he's
as
chaotic.
Varys?
Yeah, he's definitely chaotic.
Yeah. Well, chaos is a ladder, as the three-eyed raven reminded us. He said once. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that intrigued me less, but I agree. The only mystery is whether or not Arya is hip to his shenanigans.
All right. The only other thing I want to mention is that I personally, there's a lot of online speculation about who Azor Ahai is, who the prince that was promised is, and that maybe those are two different people. Maybe they're the same. Melisandre believes it's Jon, but of course she went off to Essos to find out. I think Azor Ahai, who supposedly has a flaming sword, is Beric Dondarrion, because Azor Ahai supposedly comes back from the dead and he has a flaming sword, and Beric Dondarrion and Jon Snow are the only two people who've come back from the dead in this series so far. And of the two, Beric is the only one that's ever had a flaming sword.
Okay. I think it's interesting that that's even a thing people are arguing about.
Well, Azor Ahai is the hero who will help defeat the White Walkers, and here he goes, Beric Dondarrion, alongside Jon Snow, who might be the prince that was promised, heading north of the wall to fight the
Beric Dondarrion's the one wearing the eye patch in the jail cell? Okay. All right. Yeah, no, I can see that. I mean, again, we got this awesome revenge story, this weird, pipe dream of capturing a Walking Dead or whatever.
Yeah. And going full Michonne on it, I'm going to guess.
Yeah.
If you haven't watched The Walking Dead, I'm not going to explain that.
By the way, Ghost is what? Just wandering around the north somewhere? He sent Ghost away?
Ghost is hiding below the budget that they spend to make the dragons in this. That's what's happening with Ghost. Apparently, they shot a scene for last week's episode where Jon says goodbye to Ghost, but then they didn't spend the money to draw Ghost. And so they cut the scene.
Just release it as him talking to a
tennis ball
on a stick.
And so Ghost is, and they mention Ghost. They're like, you're waiting around for Jon like Ghost, so that you know where Ghost is. But yeah, we will probably. They also spent all that money on Nymeриa's pack early in the season as well. So they're just saving Ghost appearances for later, I think.
Yeah, I guess. All right, that's fine.
All right, let's finish off with Firefly, the episode Safe, which I think also describes this episode as far as within the Firefly universe. There is nothing I have to criticize about it. It has lots of cool twists and turns. There's plenty of jeopardy. There's shenanigans and crime gets done. And in the end, everybody's back on board the Firefly. It's a safe episode.
Did you enjoy seeing the chief from Justified show up?
Oh, Erica Tizell, you mean?
Yeah. Yeah,
Rachel.
Yeah, Rachel. When she shows
up, you said
up,
the Chief. I thought you meant Art.
Oh no,
I was like, he was in it too. But
no,
yes,
no.
Of course.
That's
He
Ghost
was
Chief.
Chief. Yeah.
That's Obi-Wan Chief.
Right.
But she was. It felt a little clunky. Like, I believe that in this future world that resources would be allocated unfairly. You know, there would be some haves and have-nots. It's harder for me to believe that suddenly people would go so ignorant. You know, it seems like it's so affordable to throw down an iPad with a complete copy of science on it. You know, like, I would like one copy of science, please. Well,
as we are learning in this information age, access to information is not the same as acceptance of information.
Correct. But then, like, if I had it to do different, I would say go out of your way to draw the fact that this is not just a impoverished world. It's specifically a cult environment.
It's a particular belief system.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so that was a bigger pill to swallow than I had expected. I'll tell you what, though, that moment, my favorite moment is when Summer Glau is like, you see her approaching the dancing people in the beautiful yard, and there's this cold analysis on her brain, and then when the beat drops, you know, her eyes light up with joy, she smiles, and then dances right in, exactly mimicking the style or whatever. Like, that's a pretty good hint of what we eventually find out she's all about, you know?
Yeah. And my apologies if there is someone listening to this who's never seen any other episodes of Firefly except the ones we've discussed so far. I can't imagine there's many of you. But I will say, slightly spoilering the future characterization of River Tam, I found it a little unbelievable, knowing what I know now, how she reacted when she was abducted.
Yeah, she fell into sellable victimhood very quickly, which if I'm gonna retcon this in my mind, I'm gonna say that she's also in tune enough with everything. She sees the coalescing of the quartet of Serenity and knows that they're going to come in time and knows that this will be a galvanizing moment.
Like,
and
the
that's
better
why she's
path
not worried.
Out is to go with the flow.
Correct.
Yeah.
So if I'm gonna rewrite that in my mind, it'll be for that reason.
Do you say so?
So say we all.
Then let it be so.
Let's do 5 different franchises. I did find it rather unbelievable how intense Mal is about abandoning, you know, the doctor and leaving him behind just because he got lost. That seemed a little bit weird and out of nowhere.
I think that I read that the first time I saw this as Mal knows that the best bet for the preacher is to go to Alliance territory. Mal also knows that that's a really horrible idea, and he's nervous about that. And Mal also feels guilty about knowing that's the best decision and leaving the doctor on the planet. But it is the right call. It is the right move. Going and trying to find the doctor on the hopes that they'll find him in time to save the preacher is riskier than showing up with the Alliance crew.
It is a rather dramatic depiction of the grudging libertarian who signs up on Obamacare, you know?
Well, and I tell you, I have less of a problem with that part of Mal than I have with the preacher going like, I did card, and them going, oh, take this man in right now. Whereas before they were going to refuse to treat him. Like,
I bought that because again, that's the beauty of the Alliance in this storyline is they're not evil. They're just a fundamentally lumbering bureaucracy. This you know the cartoon version of socialism that
what strikes me now is knowing his backstory from the comic books at this point. I'm just like, that would work. Okay. But at this point, it's kind of the same thing as River Tam. It's setting you up to know for sure, wait, there's way more to this preacher than we thought.
Yeah. I did not read the comic books, but knowing how the stories go and how the movie goes, I felt like they were long on promises of a more interesting backstory to Shepard Book than I think ever got delivered on the TV show and movie.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that is it for this episode of Spoilerin Time. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out with us. We will spoil you again next week.
Love you.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.